My dad skipped my mom's funeral to travel with his mistress, but what happened that night, just a few weeks ago, my mother was perfectly healthy, her laughter echoing brightly in the backyard garden. Then one morning, the call came from the hospital. She had passed away due to sudden cardiac arrest. The funeral took place in the rain. And my father? He didn't show up. As they lowered the coffin, he was in Hawaii, hand in hand with his young mistress, smiling for the camera. I stood silently before my mother's grave, trying to convince myself it was over. But that night, my phone lit up. A message from my mother's number: "I'm not dead. Come to the grave now." I froze. Without thinking, I rushed out into the rain, my heart pounding. The cemetery was silent, streetlights flickering off the tombstone. Then, through the misty white fog, I saw a figure standing before the fresh grave. Part 1, The Cracks in the Picture. Hello, my name is Oliver Harris. I'm 33 years old, living in Portland, Oregon, where gentle rains fall and the Willamette River flows as calmly as a lullaby. From the outside, my life might seem like a perfect picture. I'm an architect for a prestigious urban design firm. I have a wonderful wife, Audrey, a psychologist whose smile melts away worries, and a 5-year-old son, Nathan, with bright eyes and endless questions. We live in a modern wooden house nestled by the river, where the morning sunlight casts a warm golden glow over the breakfast table. Every day I wake up, brew coffee, and listen to Audrey's giggles with Nathan, thinking I'm truly fortunate. But no picture is ever truly perfect. Behind the brilliance of happy days, there are always shadows people avoid. And my shadow perhaps begins with my extended family, with my father and mother. My father, Leonard Harris, is a titan in Portland's real estate world. At 65, he still runs Harris Capital, a renowned real estate investment company. He's a polished man, always in a tailored suit, his voice calm but sharp, every word carefully calculated. To outsiders, he's an icon of success. To me, he's a stonewall, cold, unapproachable, and always making me feel I'm never good enough. I remember winning my first design award at 25. I excitedly showed him the certificate. He just glanced at it and said in an even tone, "Good job, Oliver. But working for someone else is just working for someone else." Those words cut like a knife. To him, I was just an architect, not the heir to his empire. He wanted me to take over Harris Capital, but I refused. I didn't want to live in his shadow. My mother, Eleanor, was the complete opposite. At 62, she retained the gentle air of an art teacher, retired but still painting and tending to the backyard garden. Every weekend, Audrey, Nathan, and I would visit. Mom would take Nathan to the garden, and while my father was usually busy with work, Mom would look at me, smile, and say, "You're my pride, Oliver. No matter what your father says, I know you've chosen the right path." She was my light, the one who made me believe I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. My life went on, balanced precariously between happy days with my family and the shadows of my strained relationship with my father. I knew this peace was as fragile as a pane of glass. The shattering call. That morning started like any other. I was at the office, discussing blueprints for a new urban project. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Something about the persistent ringing gave me a bad feeling. I stepped into the hallway and picked up. "Hello, is this Mr. Oliver Harris?" The woman's voice was trembling. "I'm a nurse from Portland General Hospital. I'm so sorry to inform you that your mother, Mrs. Eleanor Harris, passed away this morning. She suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. We did everything we could, but I didn't hear the rest." My heart pounded, and the world collapsed. "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. "No, you're mistaken. My mother can't. You're saying my mother died of a heart attack?" I asked again, my voice trembling. "How is that possible? She was healthy. No history of heart problems." "Are you sure it's my mother, Eleanor Harris?" Yes, sir. I'm so sorry. Can you come to the hospital now? I hung up, frozen in the hallway. Everything, the laughter from the meeting room, the sunlight, felt alien. I drove in a daze. Rain began to fall, streaking the windshield as if the sky itself were crying. How could my mother be gone like that? How could someone so full of life vanish in a single moment? Memories flooded back, my mother in a floral apron, teaching me to draw, telling me, every line tells a story. Just draw with your heart. Those were the afternoons where I found my love for architecture. But then, my father's cold voice, "What's the point of all this doodling, Eleanor? He needs to learn to work seriously, not daydream." I grabbed my phone and dialed my father's number, hoping he could explain something. The phone rang again and again, unanswered. Why wasn't he picking up? A dark cloud loomed, my father was always in control. Could he know something I didn't? The cold wall. When I parked at Portland General Hospital, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the car door. I ran into the lobby. "Mr. Harris, this way, please." At the end of the hall, I saw my father, Leonard Harris, in a perfectly tailored gray suit, talking to a doctor. He looked calm, too calm, as if discussing a real estate deal, not the death of his wife. "Dad, what's going on? Is she really?" My voice broke. My father turned, his eyes cold as stone. "Oliver, you're here. The doctor was just explaining. Your mother had a heart attack, a stroke. They couldn't save her." His voice was steady, without a trace of grief. The doctor spoke up, confirming the sudden cardiac arrest. There were no warning signs. Sudden. I nearly shouted. My mother had no history of heart problems. Who brought her here? What happened? My father cut me off, his voice sharp. "That's enough, Oliver. Don't make a scene. Your mother is gone. Now we need to handle the paperwork and maintain the family's dignity. Understood?" I was stunned. Dignity? My mother had just died, and he was worried about dignity. A nurse handed me a bag of my mother's personal belongings, a small wallet, pearl earrings, and a handkerchief embroidered with daisies. I clutched the handkerchief, the faint scent of her perfume lingering. My father turned away, pulling out his phone, already stepping into the hallway to speak with someone. I watched his back, a chill running down my spine. The woman he'd lived with for over 30 years was gone, yet he was detached. I felt it deep in my bones, my mother's death wasn't simple. Part 2, The Betrayal. 3 days later, I stood at the cemetery on the outskirts of Portland. The air was heavy and damp for my mother's farewell. I had handled everything, coffin, flowers, ceremony. My father called the night before, "I'm tied up with some paperwork for the estate. Can you handle it?" I clenched my teeth but said, "Yes." I stood at the gate, greeting relatives and friends. Eleanor was a wonderful woman, too suddenly. Each word felt like a knife. What stung more were the whispers, "Where's Leonard? Why isn't he here?" It's strange. I kept my head down, trying to maintain the family's dignity, as my father had demanded. Audrey stood by my side, my anchor. My 5-year-old, Nathan, confused in his black suit, asked, "Daddy, where's Grandma?" As the coffin was lowered, tears finally spilled over. My mother's departure was too sudden, too senseless. My father's absence was a slap in the face, a betrayal of everything my mother had sacrificed. That night, at home, I scrolled through my father's social media, something I rarely did. Then I froze. A photo showed my father in a white suit, standing next to a young woman, maybe in her 30s. They were on a balcony, smiling brightly, wine glasses sparkling. The caption cut like a knife, "A new chapter in life." My mother had been buried just hours ago, and he was publicly flaunting a new chapter with a stranger. Rage erupted inside me. I showed Audrey the phone. She looked at the screen, her eyes widening, then slowly lowering. I walked to the bookshelf, staring at an old framed wedding photo of my parents. "Mom," I whispered. "What happened to you? Why is he doing this?" My gaze hardened. My mother's death wasn't random. I had no proof, but I knew the truth was being hidden, and I would not stop until I uncovered it. The message. Later that night, the house swallowed by darkness, I sat holding my mother's belongings. Then my phone buzzed. My heart stopped. My mother's number appeared. A short message: "I'm not dead. Come to my grave now." Was this a cruel joke? I stared at the screen, then frantically called the number. It rang once, twice, then abruptly cut off. A powerful instinct surged. I stopped thinking. I grabbed a flashlight and a raincoat and rushed out. I had to get to the cemetery. I had to find the truth. The road was pitch black. The cemetery loomed, cold and eerie. I parked, and my flashlight illuminated the dirt path to the grave. As I approached, I froze. A figure stood there, a few meters away, right in front of the freshly covered tombstone. A frail, trembling silhouette, achingly familiar. I aimed the flashlight. The beam lit up her face. My mother. She was thinner, her hair matted from the rain, but her eyes were still bright, still warm. "Oliver," she whispered, her voice faint but clear. She broke into sobs. I rushed forward, wrapping her in my arms, tears streaming uncontrollably. The warmth of her body, the faint scent of her perfume, the embrace I thought I'd lost forever. "Mom. Mom," I repeated. How are you alive?" She took my hand, her fingers cold but firm. "You can't tell anyone I'm alive," she whispered, her gaze a mix of pain and resolve. "I had a reason to fake my death. I'll explain everything to you, Oliver." My mind reeled. A plan? Fake death? Who helped her? Why did she choose me? The rain continued to fall, cloaking us in mist. My mother was alive. The escape. Suddenly, she pulled me away from the flashlight's glow. "It's not safe here," she whispered, resolute. "Follow me, Oliver. We need to talk." We walked to an old, faded silver sedan parked at the corner. She opened the door. I hesitated, still staring at her. "Mom, are you sure you're okay? Get in, son. I'll explain." We drove off into the night. She took me to a small, weathered house tucked away on Portland's outskirts. The interior was sparse. She scanned the surroundings before leading me inside. She sat across from me, her thin hands clasped. "I know you're angry that I hid this from you, that I let you endure the pain. But I had no other choice." "Mom, why? Why did you have to do this? And Dad, does he have anything to do with this?" Just mentioning my father made my blood boil. She took a deep breath, her eyes darkening. "It started a few months ago. Your father, he changed, Oliver. He became colder, more ruthless. I discovered he was having an affair with a young woman named Vanessa who works at his company. He was blatant about it, as if he wanted to humiliate me." I clenched my fists. "When I confronted him," she continued, trembling, "he didn't deny it. Instead, he threatened me. He wanted me to sign over assets, shares in the company, everything in my name. He said, if I didn't agree, I'd disappear." "Disappear? You mean Dad threatened to kill you?" I choked out. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I wasn't sure if he'd go through with it, but I felt the danger. He started watching me, Oliver. I found hidden cameras in the bedroom. He'd fly into rages, and once he even shoved me. That's when I knew I had to do something to protect myself." I sat in stunned silence. My father, the cold, domineering man, was a murderer. I remembered his emotionless gaze at the hospital. "I had an old friend at Portland General Hospital," she said, her voice steadier now. "Her name is Martha. I told her everything, and she agreed to help. I planned to fake a heart attack. The housekeeper didn't know, so when I collapsed, she called for help immediately. At the hospital, Martha recorded that I had gone into cardiac arrest and helped me leave through a back exit. They used a mannequin to substitute the body. Everyone, including your father, believed I was dead. Mom, you planned all of this. But why didn't you tell me? Do you know how much it hurt to think you were gone?" I was torn between anger and love. She lowered her head, tears streaming. "I'm sorry, Oliver. I couldn't take the risk. Your father, he's too dangerous. If he suspected even the slightest thing. I chose you because I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You're the only one I trust." I looked at her, my heart aching with pity and rage. She had to stage her own death to survive. My father, with his perfect suit and cold smile, was far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. I had no other choice, Oliver. Faking my death was the only way to survive and make him let his guard down. But now I need you. We have to uncover the truth before he finds out I'm still alive. I felt a fire ignite in my chest. Pain, rage, and love fused into a cold determination. I would protect my mother, and I would make Leonard Harris pay. But I knew this wasn't the time for impulsive actions. We needed evidence, a solid plan that I gripped her hand tightly. "Mom, I'll do whatever it takes to help you, but I need to know what you want me to do. Where do we start?" She sighed, her eyes scanning the bare room. "We need evidence, Oliver. Evidence of what he's done, not just to me, but everything he's hidden in the past. Your father is careful, but he's overconfident now. He thinks I'm dead, that no one stands in his way. This is our chance." I wanted to scream, to confront my father immediately, but I knew she was right. We had to act smart, not emotional. "I'll keep this secret, Mom," I said, my voice steadier. "I won't tell anyone, not even Audrey or Nathan. But you have to promise me you won't disappear again. I couldn't handle losing you a second time." She gave a sad smile, gently stroking my cheek. "I promise, Oliver. From now on, I won't hide anything from you." Living two lives. Returning home that night, I felt like I was living in two worlds. One was the warm house by the Willamette River, where Audrey and Nathan slept peacefully. The other was a dark storm where my mother had staged her death to survive, and my father was a potential criminal. I slipped in quietly, sat in the living room, and stared at my mother's framed photo, wondering how I could keep this massive secret from the wife I loved. The next morning, I forced myself to act normal. Audrey noticed my exhaustion. "Are you okay, Oliver?" she asked. "You look like you haven't slept all night." "I'm fine, honey," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just still not used to Mom being gone." I hugged her, feeling a sharp pang of guilt. But I had promised my mother. I couldn't risk a single mistake that could put her in danger. My mother stayed hidden, contacting me only through an encrypted phone. "Don't call directly," she instructed. "Only text when necessary. And be careful, Oliver. Your father isn't easily fooled." Meanwhile, Leonard Harris was enjoying a lavish life. I checked his social media. There he was on a yacht in California, arm around Vanessa, smiling as if he'd never lost his wife. "Freedom is living true to yourself," one caption read. Each post fueled my determination. His overconfidence, as Mom said, was our advantage. The private study. I decided to use his absence to act. The family mansion became my target. I knew my father had a private study where he kept important documents. One evening, after Audrey and Nathan were asleep, I drove to the mansion. I still had a key, but I moved in the darkness, feeling like a thief in my own childhood home. My father's study was on the second floor, secured by an electronic lock. Luckily, the code was still my mother's birthday, a detail that felt bitterly ironic. Inside, I began searching. After nearly an hour, I noticed a panel on the wall behind the large wooden desk that seemed out of place. I tapped it and heard a hollow sound. Using a letter opener, I pried it open. Behind the panel was a small old safe. I tried combinations until I entered their wedding anniversary. It opened with a dry click. Inside was a treasure trove of dark secrets. Bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts, Switzerland, the Cayman Islands. Forged contracts with my mother's signature, transferring shares and properties she never agreed to. A small USB drive and an old stack of newspapers. I plugged the USB into my laptop. An audio file appeared, recorded over 20 years ago. I pressed play. My father's harsh, angry voice, "You think you can control me forever, Charles? This fortune belongs to me, not you or your daughter." A calmer, firm voice, my grandfather's, "Leonard, you won't touch a cent unless Eleanor agrees. You know that." The argument escalated until the recording abruptly cut off. My heart pounded as I opened the stack of newspapers. They were local papers from 2 decades ago, with headlines about a car accident that killed my grandparents. My mother had always told me they died during a business trip. But now, piecing together the recording, my father's resentful tone, and the timing of the accident days later, I began to suspect. Was my father directly involved in their deaths to seize my mother's inheritance? I photographed and backed up everything. Then I drove back to the suburban house. A cold determination. When I told my mother, she sat silently, clutching her glass of water. "I always suspected," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I always felt my parents' deaths weren't normal, but I couldn't bring myself to believe Leonard could go that far." I took her hand. "Mom, we're not just dealing with a cheating husband. We're dealing with someone who might have been hiding crimes for 20 years. She nodded, her eyes now burning with resolve. "We'll expose him, Oliver. For me, for you, and for everyone he's hurt." I gripped her hand. "We'll do this the right way. No impulsiveness. We need to build a solid case so when he falls, he won't get back up. You're truly my son, Oliver," she smiled faintly. "Always thorough. I know someone who can help us, Charlotte Wells, a lawyer specializing in finance and estates. She's my best friend from college. If anyone knows how to deal with men like your father, it's Charlotte." The documents I found, the bank statements, forged contracts, the recording, are they enough to begin? I asked. "They're enough to start," she said. "But we need more. Your father is careful. We need additional evidence, and everything must be legal so he can't escape." The legal bomb. The days that followed felt like I was living 2 lives. By day, I was Oliver Harris, architect and family man. By night, I was a truth seeker, quietly assembling the puzzle to dismantle my father's empire. I met with Charlotte Wells at a small cafe. She was a woman in her 50s with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. As I recounted my mother's story and showed her the documents, she listened intently. "This is a big case," Charlotte finally said. "Leonard Harris isn't just an adulterer. If what you're saying is true, he could be running an illegal financial network. We need more evidence, and we need to do this by the book." Charlotte began organizing the evidence, turning my scattered pieces into a coherent internal investigation file. She categorized the bank statements, scrutinized the forged contracts, and hired an audio expert to verify the recording. "The recording is crucial," she said. "It shows Leonard's intent, but we need to tie it to specific actions. Can you get more data from his company, Harris Capital?" I knew it was dangerous, but I had an advantage. I was his son, and I still had limited access to some company systems. One evening, I went to Harris Capital's headquarters, pretending to retrieve old design documents. The security guard, Frank, let me in without suspicion. I went to the 10th floor, to my father's expansive office. I powered on his computer and used a backup password I'd seen him enter. I found a hidden folder encrypted with another password. I tried several combinations, and finally typed, Vanessa. The folder unlocked. Inside were countless emails, invoices, and records of anonymous offshore investment funds. This was gold, evidence of under-the-table transactions, money that never appeared in the official books. I copied everything to a USB drive. Meanwhile, my mother contacted an old friend in the tax authority, Robert, who had worked under my grandfather. She sent him copies of the documents. A few days later, Robert called back, his voice grave. Eleanor, what you sent me is a bombshell. Leonard has 4 offshore accounts totaling over $30 million unreported. This is clear evidence of money laundering and tax evasion. I'll pass this to federal agencies, but you and Oliver need to be careful. Charlotte accelerated the process. She filed an anonymous complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the IRS, initiating a temporary asset freeze on Leonard. He won't know what's happening until it's too late, she said, her eyes gleaming. We're planting a legal bomb under his feet, and it's about to go off. I also began leaking hints on social media about Harris Capital, vague suggestions of investment fraud. Soon, articles started appearing. Is Harris Capital hiding something? Shareholders grew uneasy. Then came the message from Charlotte, the FBI has launched a federal investigation. Leonard doesn't know yet, but he'll be summoned soon. I sank into a chair. Now he'll know what it feels like to lose control. Part 4, The Confrontation. I turned on the TV and saw my father's face on the local news, Leonard Harris, chairman of Harris Capital, accused of investment fraud and money laundering. Harris Capital plunged into crisis. His bank accounts were frozen. His partners withdrew their investments. The stock plummeted. My father, the man who always controlled everything, was cornered. Charlotte messaged me, Leonard has returned to Portland. He's trying to contact lawyers, but no one will take his case. The FBI is about to issue an arrest warrant. Be ready, Oliver. This will be over soon. My phone buzzed. It was him. I answered, my voice cold. Dad? Oliver. His voice was hoarse. Have you seen the news? It's all lies. They're trying to ruin me. You have to help me, Oliver. He didn't ask about Mom, didn't show a shred of remorse. Just the panic of a man losing everything. Dad, I said, keeping my voice steady. Before we talk about the company, don't you have anything to say about Mom? About what you did to her? He frowned. Your mother is dead, Oliver. Don't drag up the past to blame me. Dead? Are you sure? I gave a faint, bitter smile. If you want to talk, meet me at the mansion tonight at 8 o'clock. He agreed, his voice thick with suspicion. Fine. Don't let me down, Oliver. I texted my mother, tonight at the mansion. Are you ready? I'm ready, Oliver, but be careful. He won't accept defeat easily. At 8 o'clock, I stood before the mansion. My father was in the living room, his gray suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked small, frail. "Oh, he said, weary. I need your help. The company is collapsing. You have to stand by me." "Dad," I said, my voice icy. "Before we talk about the company, don't you have anything to say about Mom? Your mother is dead, Oliver. You know that. Don't drag up the past to blame me." "Dead? Are you sure?" I turned and opened the living room door. Eleanor Harris stepped in. Flesh and blood. She stood there, frail but resolute, her eyes locked onto my father. He staggered back, the whiskey glass falling to the floor and shattering. He nearly collapsed. "Eleanor," he whispered, trembling. "No, It's impossible. You're dead. My mother stepped forward, her voice sharp and cold. Leonard, did you think you could kill me so easily? Did you think you could take everything, my assets, my family, even my life, without paying a price? What are you talking about? Oliver, you're behind this, aren't you? You two are conspiring to frame me. I stepped beside my mother. Dad, stop pretending. We know everything. The offshore accounts, the forged contracts, how you threatened Mom. And then there's my grandparents. Did you think their car accident would stay a secret forever? My mother's voice trembled with pain. Leonard, I once loved you. But you killed my parents, didn't you? For their fortune. And you planned to do the same to me. He laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. You're both insane. I didn't kill anyone. You have no proof. I pulled out my phone and played the audio file, his argument with my grandfather from 20 years ago. His face went pale. Before he could shout more, police sirens sounded outside. The door burst open, and federal agents stormed in. An officer stepped forward, holding up an arrest warrant. Leonard Harris, you're under arrest for money laundering, investment fraud, and accessory to murder. He was handcuffed right there. As he was escorted out, he turned back, his eyes burning with hatred. You'll regret this, Eleanor, he growled. But my mother stood silent, her eyes filled with the resolve of a winner. Part 5, Justice and New Beginnings. The case against Leonard Harris quickly became a national media frenzy. He was no longer the successful entrepreneur but the mastermind of a dark financial network. The charges, money laundering, investment fraud, tax evasion, and accessory to the deaths of my grandparents, were laid out clearly. My mother and I were key witnesses. In the courtroom, my father sat in the defendant's chair, looking small and broken. When my mother took the stand, I saw her stronger than ever. She recounted everything, her voice unwavering. I had to fake my death to survive, she said, looking directly at my father. But I didn't do this for revenge. I did it to protect my son, to protect what was left of my family. When it was my turn, I looked at my father. You once said I wasn't good enough, I said, my voice calm but sharp. But I don't need your approval. I just need my mother to be safe and the truth to be revealed. The trial ended with a 30-year prison sentence. All of my father's assets were seized, and Harris Capital went bankrupt. The dark financial network was dismantled. My mother, dubbed by the media as the woman who returned from the dead, chose to step away from the spotlight. She sold the old mansion, donating the proceeds to a foundation supporting women affected by domestic abuse and financial manipulation. I don't need that house anymore, she said. It only reminds me of the days I lived in fear. She moved to a small house on the Oregon coast, where she lived peacefully, planting wild daisies and painting. She taught local children how to paint, her smile as radiant as ever. She had reclaimed herself. I changed, too. I left my corporate job and opened a small studio called Eleanor Designs, specializing in green spaces and community housing. My goal was simple: to build homes where people felt safe, not houses full of wounds. When Audrey learned the full truth, she was speechless. Oliver, why didn't you tell me? She asked, her eyes red. I apologized and explained my fear of putting her in danger. She hugged me. I'm proud of you, but don't ever hide anything from me again, okay? Audrey and Nathan remained my greatest anchors. We visited my mother often. Trips to the Oregon coast became a joy for the whole family. Watching my mother and Audrey laugh together, and Nathan run carefree in the daisy garden, my heart warmed. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table at my mother's seaside home, I looked up at Audrey, Nathan, and my mother. I used to think happiness was about achieving success, I said. But after everything, I've learned that happiness is living without fear and being able to hold your head high and say, I didn't betray my conscience. My mother took my hand, her eyes shining. You've made me proud, Oliver. Audrey smiled, and Nathan chimed in, Dad's my superhero. We burst into laughter. And in that moment, I knew that no matter how painful the past had been, we had found the light. We had found each other. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.